All right, tonight we'll pick up in Luke chapter 20. Verse 1 says, "And it came to pass that on one of those days, as he taught the people in the temple, he preached the gospel. The chief priest and the scribes came upon him with the elders, and spake unto him, saying, Tell us, by what authority doest thou these things? Or who is he that gave thee this authority?" So what things are they talking about? All the things that we've heard of already, and the teachings that he's doing in the temple. And look how they brought the elders. You kind of see that. I'm going to get in trouble. You kind of see that today. But the churches today use their deacons to do that thing, and that's not appropriate, but they brought the elders. I wonder if they thought that they had a little more pull by bringing the elders in the church, if they are to confront Jesus, if the congregation that was there would think, like Norman said, it would influence the people a little bit more by convincing the elders to come and question Jesus as well. And he says, he answered and said unto them, I will also ask you one thing, and answer me. The baptism of John, was it from heaven or of men? And they reasoned with themselves, saying, If we shall say, From heaven, he will say, Why then believed ye him not? But if we say of men, all the people will stone us, for they persuaded that John was a prophet. All right, so he's kind of got them back in a corner, doesn't he? And they thought about it for a little while, and they don't know how to answer this question. Because if he answers from heaven, then they have to believe what he's saying. But if they say it was of men, then everything they've been talking about John is null and void. They don't know where to go. And they answered that they could not tell from where it was. So they just decided to say, I don't know. IDK, I don't know. And Jesus said unto them, Neither tell I you by what authority I do these things. So if they'd have answered his question, Jesus was going to answer theirs. He's like, that's what he said. All right, I'll answer your question if you answer mine. And they didn't answer it. So he says, all right, well, I'm not going to answer you. You know what this did? This just infuriated them.
I would say so.
They were already mad at him.
Made him madder.
And now he's put them on the spot. Not only the religious leaders, but he's got the elders there too. And the whole reason they brought the elders, I believe, was, like Norman said, was to influence the congregation that was there. And now he's got them on the spot in front of this large crowd of people, and they can't answer. So now they've been embarrassed on the platform. They've been embarrassed. So now they're even steaming hotter under the collar. So right after this, he goes into teaching. He's going to explain it to them a little bit. He says, Then began he to speak to the people this parable. A certain man planted a vineyard and led it forth to the husbandman and went into a far country for a long time. Okay, so the landowner planted a vineyard and he left it with the farmer to care for. And he went a long ways away for a long period of time. And at the season, he sent a servant to the husbandman that they should give him of the fruit of the vineyard. Okay, so the landowner is still far away. But he sent one of his servants to gather his crop. He wanted some of the fruit that came from it. But the husbandman beat him and sent him away empty. And again, he sent another servant, and they beat him also, and entreated him shamefully, and sent him away empty. Okay, so twice. They just beat the first one. Now they beat this one and embarrassed him. And again, he sent a third, and they wounded him also and cast him out. Then said the Lord of the vineyard, What shall I do? I will send my beloved son. It may be they will reverence him when they see him. But when the husbandmen saw him, they reasoned among themselves, saying, This is the heir. Come, let us kill him, that the inheritance may be ours. So they cast him out of the vineyard and killed him. What therefore shall the Lord of the vineyard do unto them? He shall come and to destroy these husbandmen, and shall give the vineyard to others. And when they heard it, they said, God forbid. That story that he just told, that parable he just told, is exactly what's happening to him. God is the landowner. He has sent servants, the prophets, to tell of who he is and what's to come. Many have denied the prophecies, so he sent his son, the heir. And look what they're doing. It's the same thing they're doing to Jesus. They're going to cast him out, and they're going to kill him. And they said, God forbid. They didn't think that this should happen. You know why? Because he put it in real terms. There were probably some landowners in this congregation. Probably some farmers in this congregation. And they said, no way we're going to allow this to happen. But it's the very thing that they're doing to Jesus. And he beheld them and said, what is this then that the builders rejected? The same is become the head of the corner. The stone that the builder rejected is going to be the cornerstone of what God is trying to build. Whosoever shall fall upon that stone shall be broken. But on whomsoever it shall fall, it will grind him to powder. Sounds pretty rough, doesn't it? And the chief priests and the scribes the same hour sought to lay hands on him. And they feared the people, for they perceived that he had spoken this parable against them. Okay. Now this laying on of hands is not the laying on of hands to pray. They wanted to beat down Jesus. Because they understood the message behind the parable. I mean, look, they admitted it. They perceived that he had spoken this parable against them. They understood. It says they feared the people. Do you think they might have been worried that this large group of people would have stopped them from getting to Jesus? I think they would have. And they watched him and sent forth spies, which should feign themselves just men, that they might take hold of his words, that so they might deliver him unto the power and authority of the governor. So they send in spies, like we see the CIA today send in spies, and they blending in, part of the culture wherever they're sent. These guys are the same thing. They're pretending to be something they're not, with one intent, and that was to take hold of his words so that they could twist them. Take his words and twist them, and surrender him over, or turn him over to the authority of the government. And they ask him, saying, Master. That's very hypocritical, isn't it? But they're just playing the role. Master, we know that thou sayest and teachest rightly. Neither acceptest thou the person of any, but teachest the way of God truly. Is it lawful for us to give tribute unto Caesar or not? But Jesus, in his all-knowing self, he perceived their craftiness and said unto them, why tempt me? So see, they're trying to trick him. They put that question out there because they wanted him to say, no, you honor God. Not Caesar, but you honor God. That's what they wanted him to say. But he knew what they were doing, and he asked them, why you tempt me? Show me a penny whose image and superscription has it. Okay, so just like our money. It's got the picture of Caesar on it and an inscription from the king on this money. And they answered and said, Caesar's. And he said unto them, render therefore unto Caesar the things which be Caesar's, and unto God the things which be God's. So you got to separate it, huh? Give the due respect that belongs to both. And they could not take hold of his words before the people, and they marveled at his answer and held their peace. So he's kind of got them stumped here. And they can't challenge him on it in front of the people. So they just held their peace. They're thinking about what's going on here. It says, then came to him certain of the Sadducees, which deny that there is any resurrection, and they asked him, saying, Master, Moses wrote unto us, if any man's brother die, having a wife, and he die without children, that his brother should take his wife and raise up seed unto his brother. There were therefore 7 brethren, and the first took a wife and died without children. And the second took her to wife, and he died childless. And the third took her in like manner, the 7 also, and they left no children and died. Last of all, the woman died also. Therefore, in the resurrection, whose wife of them is she? For 7 had her to wife. You see what's going on here? They're trying to trip him up. Jesus answered, saying unto them, the children of this world marry, and are given in marriage. But they which shall be accounted worthy to obtain that world and the resurrection from the dead, neither marry nor are given in marriage. Neither can they die any more, for they are equal unto the angels, and are the children of God, being the children of the resurrection. Okay, that answers a question that's been posed a lot. Will we be married in heaven? Will Peggy and Norman be married in heaven? No. Norman, praise the Lord over here. He did like this. No, I'm just kidding.
I'll go with them when I get home.
I figured. But that's an often thought question that people always spit out that verse, you'll be known as you are known. Yes, you will be known as you are known. But you will not be married. Why? Why do you think? Let's just speculate for a few minutes. Why do you think?
Well, one reason is that you will not necessarily be all together.
Okay.
We'll all be there, but we may not be in the same group.
Okay. What you think? Any thoughts?
We're all equal.
Okay.
We would all be equal, so there would be no
Wife being submissive.
Submissive. Okay. But aren't we going to be the bride of Christ? Isn't that a picture of marriage?
Yeah.
And then also, I think that the reason there would be no marriage is because we are not supposed to, but how many times do we put our spouses in front of God? We do. And how about our children? We put those things in front of God. Here, there's nothing but you and God. So that way, He would be first and foremost in everything. So that answers that question. We will not marry or be given in marriage. Neither can they die anymore. We've tasted death for the last time. If we taste death, the rapture comes, we won't. But if we taste death, we've tasted it for the last time. We are equal unto the angels and are the children of God, being the children of the resurrection. That is the finality of proof of salvation, is being resurrected. That's the final proof that we were saved. Now, is there evidence of salvation before then? Yes, there should be. There should be. Now that the dead are raised, even Moses showed at the bush when he hath called the Lord the God of Abraham and the God of Isaac and the God of Jacob. For he is not a God of the dead, but of the living, for all live unto him. And see, what he's done here is he twisted it right back on them. They brought some scripture that Moses wrote, and tried to trip Jesus up on it. And look what he did. He took them all the way back to Moses's calling, if you will, at the bush. He's talking about the burning bush there. He took them all the way back. Before Moses written any scripture, he took them all the way back to there and said, this is how Abraham addressed it, or this is how Moses addressed God. You see that? Then certain of the scribes answering said, Master, thou hast well said. And after that, they durst not ask him any questions at all. They quit. They didn't even have a desire to ask him any more questions. And he said unto them, how say they that Christ is David's son? And David himself saith in the book of Psalms, the Lord said unto my Lord, sit thou on my right hand, till I make thine enemies thy footstool. David therefore calleth him Lord. How is he then his son? So they're not asking any more questions. Jesus is. Then in the audience of all the people, he said unto the disciples, beware of the scribes, which desire to walk in long robes and love greetings in the markets and the highest seats in the synagogues and the chief rooms at feast. What is he saying here? They just want to be seen.
Feel important.
They just want the acknowledgement of men. They are nothing special. That's why they're wearing these long robes. Royalty and people with money and position, robes were different lengths. The poorer you were, the shorter your robe was. You know why? Because it's hard to work in a long robe. Poorer you were, the shorter your robe was. And they loved greetings in the market. They loved to walk through the marketplace. Hi, Michael. Hi, Norman. They loved to hear people just saying hello and greeting them. It boosted them up for some reason. And they wanted the best seats in the synagogues and the best rooms for when they were eating. But it goes on. Beware of them, because they devour widows' houses, and for a show make long prayers. Once again, still wanting to be heard. There's no specific length to a prayer. You just pray what's on your heart and be done. But there are those, and we've probably all experienced it at some point in our life, those, and I'm not saying that every long prayer is what's going on, but there are those who pray long to make themselves seem like they're more in touch with God or more spiritual than those that are around them. That's what they were doing. And for a show, make long prayers. The same shall receive greater damnation. Greater? So, what is that greater saying?
They're going to receive more severe.
So, in saying that, is there degrees of hell?
Degrees of hell. Is that
Not temperature degrees, but different degrees, different areas of hell. It's kind of a trick question.
I never thought about that. Let's see what it might
What
be.
difference would it make?
It doesn't. It's kind of a trick question, because if in the eyes of God sin is sin, then punishment is punishment.
That's true.
It's not necessarily a different spot in hell, but I think they'll understand exactly what they've done and it'll affect them more at judgment. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because they had the position,
It's
they
gonna
could have
come
done
up
so
in-
much more.
It's gonna come up in their mind and all of why they did all these things that they did do.
Yes, and maybe the conviction will be 10 times that. I don't know what the greater damnation is. I just threw that question in there. I don't think that there's different levels of hell. I can't find anywhere. We may as well read on a little bit. It's only 6:20. Verse 21, or chapter 21. And he looked up and saw the rich men casting their gifts into the treasury. And he saw also a certain poor widow casting in thither 2 mites. And he said, Of a truth, I say unto you that this poor widow hath cast in more than they all. For all these have of their abundance cast into the offerings of God. But she of her penury has cast in all the living that she had. So what is he saying there? The rich people just gave a portion, but she gave it all. And look what he says. She gave more than them all. Not because of monetary value, but because of that was all she had. And some spake of the temple, how it was adorned with goodly stones and gifts. And he said, As for these things which ye behold, the days will come in the which there shall not be left one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down. And they asked him, saying, Master, but when shall these things be? And what sign will there be when these things shall come to pass? And he said, Take heed that you be not deceived. For many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and the time draweth near. Go ye not therefore after them. We've seen some of that in our time period. The Kool-Aid, Jim Jones, David Koresh. We've seen these. Charles Manson to a degree. We've seen these people say this stuff. But when you shall hear of wars and commotions, be not terrified. For these things must first come to pass, but the end is not by and by. So when you hear of wars and rumors of wars, don't fret, they have to pass, okay? Then he said unto them, Nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. And great earthquakes shall be in divers or many places, and famines and pestilence and fearful sights, and great signs shall there be from heaven. But before all these, they shall lay their hands on you and persecute you, delivering you up to the synagogues and into prisons, being brought before kings and rulers for my name's sake. These are martyrs that he's speaking of here. And it shall turn to you for a testimony. Settle it therefore in your hearts, not to meditate before what you shall answer. Don't think about it, what you're going to answer. He says, settle it therefore in your hearts. Not. Make your mind up, make your heart up, not to think about how you're going to answer before it happens. Why? Why do you think he told him that?
Because the Holy Spirit would give him them the
For
words
what's
to
to
say.
come.
Okay, and what'd you say?
Preparation for what's to come.
Maybe they would be so worried about having the right answer that they wouldn't be able to even speak.
Yeah.
They would consume them. They wouldn't be able to live. He says, don't worry about it. Verse 15 says, For I will give you a mouth and wisdom. What's he saying? I'll speak for you, which all your adversaries shall not be able to gainsay or resist. Gainsay is to speak against it. They won't be able to doubt it or resist it. And you shall be betrayed by both by parents and brethren and kinsfolk and friends, and some of you shall they cause to be put to death. what's he saying here? There's going to be a whole lot of chaos. People are going to be turning against people, family against family, friends. And some of them are going to kill them. And ye shall be hated of all men for my name's sake. Because you're a Christian, because you follow me, you're going to be hated. But there shall not a hair of your head perish. In your patience possesses ye your souls. And when you shall see Jerusalem compassed with armies, then know that the desolation thereof is nigh. Then let them which are in Judea flee to the mountains, and let them which are in the midst of it depart out. And let not them that are in the countries enter thereinto. For these be the days of vengeance, that all things which are written may be fulfilled. But woe unto them that are with child, and to them that give suck in those days, or breastfeeding, in those days. For there shall be great distress in the land, and wrath upon this people. And they shall fall by the edge of the sword, and shall be led away captive into all nations, and Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles, until the time of the Gentiles be fulfilled. What is he talking about there?
Getting ready for the battle.
Okay. Getting ready for the end. And all this is going to take place. We have to believe that all this is going to happen. Every single bit of it. And there shall be signs in the sun and in the moon and in the stars. And upon the earth distress of nations. Boy, he could come back tomorrow looking at that, right?
Yes.
With perplexity, the sea and the waves roaring. Men's hearts failing them for fear, and for looking after those things which are coming on the earth, for the powers of heaven shall be shaken. Men's hearts are failing them. Men are having heart attacks. Their hearts are not working because of fear, because they're looking for those things. And they shall see, and then shall they see the Son of Man coming in a cloud with power and great glory. And when these things begin to come to pass, then look up, lift up your head, for your redemption draws nigh, or near. Your redemption is coming. And he spake to them a parable. Behold the fig tree and all the trees. When they now shoot forth, you see and know of your own selves that summer is now nigh at hand. He's saying there's signs for the seasons. You can tell by the trees the season. So likewise, when you see these things come to pass, know ye that the kingdom of God is nigh at hand. So just like you see the fruit coming off on the tree, you know that summer is near. When you see these signs that I've just mentioned, know that the coming of God is near. Now, his time frame is different than ours. I mean, every single one of us in this room have heard probably our whole lives that Jesus is coming back. And probably every single one of us in this room have always heard we can look at the signs of the times today and think that Jesus is coming back tomorrow. It's coming. And our definition of time and distance does not, we can't measure time and distance in God's eyes. We can't understand that because a day is like 1,000 years to him, remember? So we don't know, but we just need to be prepared is what he's telling us. Verily I say unto you, this generation shall not pass away till all be fulfilled. Heaven and earth shall pass away, but my words shall not pass away. And take heed to yourselves, lest at any time your hearts be overcharged with surfeiting and drunkenness and cares of this life, and so that the day come upon you unaware. Look what he's saying there.
Don't be
don't be distracted mentally, is what he's saying. Everything that he said there was a mental distraction. So he said, don't be caught up in all this stuff. That day creeps up on you, and you're unaware of the day. For as a snare shall it come on all of them that dwell on the face of the whole earth. As a snare, what is that? That's a trap, right? Watch ye therefore and pray, always, that ye may be accounted worthy to escape all these things that shall come to pass, and to stand before the Son of Man. And in the daytime he was teaching in the temple, and at night he went out, and abode in the mount that is called the Mount of Olives, and all the people came early in the morning to hear him in the temple, to hear him. Now these are the same people that are fixing to be shouting, crucify. But they're listening and they want to hear, but I don't think they're soaking it in. They're listening, but they're not hearing. There's a difference. Or they're hearing, but not listening. There's a difference. They're hearing what he's saying, but it's not taking root. Because he just told them not to be distracted by all these worldly things. And it's the world that's going to crucify Jesus. And they're being distracted by all these things. There's so much interest into what this man is saying and what this man is teaching. He was there early in the morning and left at night. This was an all-day affair. And they came back the next day. There must have been something inviting about it. Be honest, could you sit in church all day and come back the next day and sit in church all day? I probably couldn't, more than a couple days. Something was luring them there. And it was his word, and it was the Holy Spirit, but they weren't grasping the whole concept of his word. We've seen that in church too. People come to church and they sit here and they keep coming back and something's drawing them here, but they're not grabbing what they're hearing. He's just trying to remind the reader and us that we have to be aware that Jesus is coming back. And because he's coming back, and because we are going to be found worthy because we have been washed in the blood, we need to be that witness. What did he say? Because it said it would be a testimony. Didn't he? Verse 13. And it shall turn to you for a testimony. The things that we have gone through. The sufferings that we have gone through. The blessings that we have been given. The salvation that we have been freely given. These things become a testimony for us. That's what we're supposed to share. The testimony of how God sent his Son to set us free. Settle it in your hearts. Don't meditate on how you should answer. Let God speak for you. See, if we let the world speak for us, we're going to say things that's not pleasing to God. And see, he was trying to address this crowd because there was a lot of religious influence in this time period. And the religious influence was not for Jesus. It's the same kind of influence we're seeing today. There's a lot of religious influence, a lot of political influence in the world today that's distracting people away from the Son of God. When you have what is celebrities out there that have a lot of airtime and a lot of ways to reach people, saying that there's more than one way to heaven. You got preachers out there saying that there's more than one way to heaven. There's a whole lot of that's religious influence. Religious people will go to hell. It's not about being religious. It's about a relationship. There is a difference. I can be religious and go through all the motions. I can read everything that was written by the hand of Moses and say, I'm going to abide by these. And I can do my very best and present that religious lifestyle. But if I don't have that relationship with Jesus, all that religion that I have is going to send me to hell. These were religious people. They questioned Jesus on the Scriptures because they knew the Scriptures. They were religious. They just didn't have that relationship. That's the difference. Not all religious people will go to hell, because I believe there are some religious people that have a relationship. But we can think that we're all right because we're doing the religious the form. We're going through the motions. But if we've never accepted Jesus, we're going to go to hell. And the world needs to know that. Our families need to know that. Our friends need to know that. The people we come in contact with daily need to know that. That's 2 chapters. I'm not going to tackle another one.
Well, people think that if they do good and live a good life, then that's all they need to do.
Oh, yeah, but and that's understandable, but what is good?
Well, I guess it's good in their eyes.
That's what I'm saying. If we all had the same start or measuring system, because something that I think is good, you might not think is good.
Right.
Just take our taste buds. That'll be an easy illustration. Mark don't like boiled peanuts, do you? Michael don't like boiled peanuts.
I do.
Me and Kate love boiled
I was
peanuts.
raised on
I love them. They're good.
So in your eyes.
In my eyes, they're good.
In our eyes, it's not good.
So see where we have the problem?
I do.
Shock.
But there's people out there that really believe that I'm living a good, I go to church every Sunday, I do what I need to do to help my neighbor.
Yep.
and
If somebody needs something, I'll get up in the middle of the
I'm right
night.
there, I'm the
I'll
first
do
one
it.
there.
But
And
that's
they
not.
think that's what's going to get them to heaven, but they in for a rude awakening.
If that was enough, then Jesus would have never had to
Would
die.
never have to die for us.
If being good was good enough, then Jesus would have never had to die. But all good went out of the window in the garden. Everything was good. Because remember,
At that time.
read the book of Genesis. He says, and it was good. And he saw that it was good. And he saw that it was good. Everything was good.
Until she listened to the word.
Until they sinned, everything was good. After that, man was no longer any good. The Bible says there is none righteous, or some translations said there is none good. No, not one. Nothing about us is righteous. Paul says, my righteousness is that of filthy rags. There's nothing good. So we have to, and you'll hear it a lot at funerals, or when someone passes and a group of men or women are talking. He was a good guy. He was a good guy. I hope I don't ever say that if I have to do a funeral. I hope I don't ever say that anybody was a good guy. But we do.
That impression that this good guy is in with the Lord now.
Especially, and if Norman passes away, God forbid, I hope the rapture takes us. But if Norman passes away before the rapture happens, I hope that I'm his pastor and I'm going to be able to do some part of his memorial service. People know that Norman is saved. But I can assure you there will probably be some lost people in that congregation. I would hate to get up there and give a false sense of security by saying, y'all, don't worry about Norman. Norman has gone on to heaven. Norman was a good man. You see where it could lead?
Oh, absolutely.
Norman's gone to heaven. I said that to comfort them. And then immediately or somewhere after that, I said, or before, that Norman was a good man. Now they're going to assume in their minds that it was his goodness that got him there. And it's easy to be led that way, to believe that. Because we all think that being good is just good enough.
Yeah.
My kids think that being good is just good enough. It's not.
No, it's not.
And I mean, my kids are good, but there's things that I expect. Just like God does. We can be good, but there's things that God expects. And if we don't do those things, regardless of how good your behavior is, you didn't listen. So there you are, not good. You can turn off. I'll ramble on if you don't.
Okay, I got a question.
All right.